In the heart of a bustling metropolis, where life flows like a relentless river, an unsettling pattern begins to emerge. A killer with clockwork precision strikes only during a specific hour on a designated day of the week. Each murder is a gruesome spectacle, seemingly random and leaving behind a trail of fear and unanswered questions. But beneath the surface of these seemingly unconnected killings, a sinister connection emerges, a thread woven through the lives of the victims that binds them together in the killer's macabre game. Enter Sarah, a seasoned investigative journalist, driven by an unquenchable thirst for truth. With a keen eye for detail and an unwavering determination to uncover the secrets that lurk beneath the surface, she dives headfirst into the labyrinthine world of the 7-Day Killer. As she follows the breadcrumbs scattered by the killer, Sarah uncovers a web of deceit, long-forgotten tragedies, and buried secrets that have festered for decades. With every passing day, the pressure mounts as the killer's next target remains shrouded in mystery. Will Sarah be able to crack the code and stop the reign of terror before it's too late? Or will the city become a graveyard of forgotten souls, silenced by the 7-Day Killer's sinister grip? Prepare to be drawn into a world where the lines between good and evil blur, where truth is elusive, and where the darkness that lurks within us all threatens to consume us all. The city's pulse quickened with a chilling unease. Rain lashed against the windows of apartment buildings, mirroring the storm brewing within the soul of the city. It was a Thursday night, the air thick with the scent of rain and fear. The discovery of a young woman, her lifeless body sprawled across her living room floor, was a grim reminder of the invisible menace that stalked their streets. Detective Liam O'Brien, his face etched with exhaustion and a hint of grim determination, surveyed the scene. The apartment, once a haven of normalcy, was now a grim testament to the brutality of the unknown assailant. Scattered around the victim, her eyes wide and vacant, were the remnants of a life brutally cut short. A half-finished meal sat forgotten on the coffee table, a chilling reminder of a life interrupted. The victim, identified as Emily Carter, a 24-year-old aspiring artist, was found by her landlord, who had grown concerned by her absence. He'd let himself in with a spare key, only to be met with the gruesome sight that had sent a shiver down his spine. Liam, a seasoned detective who had seen his fair share of gruesome scenes, felt a knot of unease tighten in his gut. This murder was different. The air hung heavy with a peculiar silence, the kind that whispered of a cold, calculated act. The apartment, despite the chaos, held an eerie stillness, as if the very walls were complicit in the crime. A young forensic officer, her hands shaking slightly, knelt beside the body, meticulously documenting every detail. The victim's clothes were torn, suggesting a struggle, and a single deep crimson stain marred the pristine white carpet. The air hung thick with the stench of blood and fear, a haunting reminder of the violence that had taken place within these walls. "Anything?" Liam asked, his voice barely a whisper, his eyes glued to the forensic officer's movements. "A single faded photograph was found near the body," the officer replied, her voice tight with unease. "It's of a lighthouse, the kind you find on the coast." Liam took the photograph, his fingers tracing the edges of the faded image. It was a simple photograph, a quaint lighthouse, standing tall against the backdrop of a swirling sea. Yet it held a chilling air of mystery. This was no ordinary murder. As the investigation unfolded, the details of Emily's life were pieced together, revealing a woman with a vibrant spirit and a passion for life. She had been working on a series of paintings, her canvas filled with swirling hues of blues and greens, evoking the calming presence of the sea. Her apartment was a reflection of her soul, filled with books and music, with her dreams etched onto every surface. But the light that had shone so brightly in her eyes was now extinguished, her dreams scattered like fallen leaves in the wind. And the photograph, a seemingly insignificant detail, held a chilling promise. The lighthouse, a beacon of hope against the storm, now stood as a silent witness to the darkness that had consumed Emily's life. The investigation continued, each hour bringing forth new information, yet the killer remained elusive, a shadow lurking in the shadows of the city. The case seemed to defy logic, each new piece of evidence raising more questions than answers. Liam and his team were in a race against time, trying to decipher the cryptic message left behind by the killer. The photograph of the lighthouse, a chilling clue, whispering of a hidden truth yet to be revealed. News of the murder spread through the city like wildfire. The fear was palpable, a silent, suffocating presence that permeated the air. Whispers of the lighthouse killer began to circulate, fueled by fear and fueled by the unanswered questions surrounding the case. Sarah, an investigative journalist known for her relentless pursuit of the truth, had been following the case closely. She had a keen eye for detail and a knack for uncovering hidden stories. The lighthouse photograph had piqued her interest. It was a seemingly random detail, yet it held a weight, a significance that she couldn't ignore. Sarah had a sixth sense for these things, a gut feeling that told her there was more to the story than met the eye. She sensed a darkness at the heart of the case, a secret that was waiting to be revealed, and she was determined to find it. The city was on edge, the fear a constant undercurrent beneath the surface of daily life. The lighthouse killer had cast a long shadow over the city, and no one felt truly safe. Sarah knew she had to act quickly. The killer was a ghost, a phantom in the night, and time was running out. She had to stop him before he could strike again. But where to start? The lighthouse photograph was her only lead, a tantalizing glimpse into the mind of the killer. She started with the photograph, tracing the outline of the lighthouse with her finger. The image was faded, but the lighthouse was unmistakable. She wondered if the killer had chosen the victim at random, or if there was a deeper connection, a hidden link that could lead her to him. She began to delve into the archives, searching for any mention of a lighthouse that could be connected to the case. The hours melted away as she pored over documents, newspaper articles, and old records. She was determined to find the answer, the key that would unlock the mystery. Finally, a glimmer of hope emerged from the depths of the archives. A news article from decades ago caught her eye. It was a story about a tragic accident that had happened at a lighthouse on the coast. A lighthouse that bore a striking resemblance to the one in the photograph. The accident had claimed the lives of 5 young people, and the lighthouse keeper, a man with a shadowy past, had been accused of negligence. Sarah's mind raced. Could this be the connection? Could the killer be seeking revenge for the tragedy that had occurred at the lighthouse decades ago? The city was gripped by fear. The lighthouse killer was no longer a whisper, but a chilling reality. The fear had taken root, a poisonous weed growing in the heart of the city. And Sarah, armed with a faded photograph and a gut feeling, was determined to bring the darkness to light. Sarah adjusted the collar of her trench coat, the crisp autumn air biting at her exposed skin. The city was a symphony of hushed whispers and uneasy glances. It had been less than a week since the first victim, a young woman named Anya, was found lifeless in her apartment. The only clue a faded photograph of a lighthouse clutched in her hand. The murder, seemingly random, had plunged the city into a state of paranoia. Sarah, a seasoned investigative journalist known for her tenacity and unwavering pursuit of justice, had become fixated on the case. The city in its collective fear craved answers, and Sarah knew she was the one to provide them. She surveyed the crime scene, a cordoned-off section of Anya's apartment building. The police, with their stoic expressions and frustrated sighs, were as bewildered as the city they were sworn to protect. Sarah, however, saw something they didn't. "The lighthouse," she murmured, her gaze lingering on the photograph clutched by the lead detective, a man with eyes that mirrored the city's unease. "It's just a photograph," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of unanswered questions. "There's nothing significant about it." Sarah disagreed. She felt an unsettling pull towards the image, a connection that whispered of a deeper meaning. Her intuition, honed over years of chasing stories, told her that the photograph was more than a mere trinket. It was a clue, a thread leading to a hidden narrative, a story that only Sarah could unravel. Days later, another victim was found, a young woman named Emily, this time in a dimly lit bookstore. The pattern was disturbingly clear. Both victims, young women with no apparent connection, had died on a Wednesday, and both had a faded photograph of the same lighthouse. The city was in a state of near panic. Speculation ran rampant, with whispered rumors about a sinister cult and vengeful ghosts haunting the city's streets. Sarah, meanwhile, was on a relentless pursuit of the truth, the fear in the city's eyes fueling her determination. "It's a game," Sarah declared, her voice a stark contrast to the hushed whispers that filled the police station. "The killer is playing a game, and the lighthouse is the key." The detective, his eyes now filled with cautious interest, turned to her. "Explain." "The lighthouse," Sarah said, her finger tracing the image on the photograph. "It connects the victims. They all worked at a lighthouse on the coast decades ago. They all have something to do with the lighthouse." The detective, still skeptical, remained silent. But Sarah's conviction, fueled by years of experience and a deep sense of justice, was unwavering. The police, unable to decipher the killer's motive or identify a pattern, had no choice but to follow Sarah's lead. Sarah's pursuit of the truth took her to the coastal town where the lighthouse stood, a solitary sentinel against the crashing waves. The locals, weathered faces etched with a lifetime of seafaring tales, spoke of the lighthouse with a mixture of awe and trepidation. They told her of a tragedy that had befallen the lighthouse years ago, a storm that had swept away the lives of 4 young people, forever casting a shadow over the town's history. Sarah, however, saw more than just a tragic accident. She saw a connection, a hidden narrative that whispered of a dark secret concealed within the lighthouse's weathered walls. As she delved deeper, she uncovered whispers of a lighthouse keeper, a man shrouded in mystery and rumors of a dark past. The locals spoke of his brooding presence and his obsession with the lighthouse, a recluse who had never truly recovered from the tragedy. Sarah's intuition told her that the lighthouse keeper was the key, the missing piece in the puzzle. But how was he connected to the victims, and what was his motive? The question haunted her, driving her to delve into the lighthouse's history, to unearth the secrets hidden beneath layers of time and tragedy. She discovered that the lighthouse keeper, a man named Silas, had been a former lover of one of the victims, a woman named Grace. The town whispered of a forbidden love, of a passion that had burned brightly, but was extinguished by the storm that took Grace's life. Sarah pieced together the fragments of Silas's past, a life marred by grief and a longing for a love lost. The lighthouse, once a symbol of hope, had become a monument to his lost love, a constant reminder of what he had lost. The story, however, was far from complete. Sarah, driven by a sense of urgency, felt the clock ticking, the city's fear palpable in the air. The killer was out there, the clockwork precision of his murders sending a shiver down her spine. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the core, that the killer's motive was not random. He was targeting the victims for a reason, and the lighthouse was the key to understanding his twisted logic. She raced against time, searching for the missing piece, the connection that would link Silas to the murders. The city held its breath, waiting for the next strike, the next victim in the clockwork killer's twisted game. Sarah, however, was not waiting. She was hunting. The city held its breath, a collective gasp of fear spreading through its veins. The news had been a macabre lullaby, a chilling melody that echoed through the streets, whispering of a predator lurking in the shadows. Another victim, another young woman, another lifeless body discovered in her apartment, a crimson stain on the white canvas of her life. Sarah, her heart pounding in sync with the city's rising panic, stood outside the cordoned-off apartment building, her gaze fixed on the entrance, a silent sentinel guarding the tragedy within. This wasn't the first time she'd seen this scene, this tableau of police tape and somber faces. But each time, the chill that ran down her spine seemed to intensify, a reminder of the fragility of life and the chilling reality of death. The victim this time was a young woman named Amelia, a bright, bubbly soul, as far removed from the darkness that now consumed her as could be imagined. Her apartment, once a sanctuary of dreams and hopes, was now a canvas of morbid details, a scene frozen in time, whispering the tale of her demise. The police, still reeling from the shock of the previous murder, were struggling to make sense of this new tragedy. Sarah, ever the beacon of reason in the storm, saw a flicker of order in the chaos. As she examined the crime scene, a detail caught her eye, a faded photograph of a lighthouse nestled among the scattered debris, a silent sentinel of a bygone era. It was a photograph similar to the one found at the scene of the first victim, a connection that sent a shiver down her spine. This wasn't a random act of violence, Sarah realized. It was a pattern, a dance of death orchestrated by a mind that reveled in its macabre artistry. Each murder occurred on a specific day of the week, at a specific time, a clockwork precision that spoke volumes about the killer's meticulous planning. It was as though the city had become a stage for a gruesome spectacle, a macabre performance directed by a phantom puppeteer, pulling the strings of fate with chilling ease. Sarah, driven by a relentless thirst for the truth, felt the weight of the city's fear on her shoulders. The whispers, the hushed conversations, the terrified glances exchanged in the shadows were all testaments to the invisible hand that had gripped the city in its icy grip. The police, despite their best efforts, were floundering in a sea of unanswered questions, their investigations leading them down a labyrinthine path with no clear end in sight. She knew that the clock was ticking, that every passing minute brought them closer to the next victim, to the next crimson stain on the city's soul. Sarah, armed with her intuition and a burning desire for justice, delved into the murky depths of the investigation, her mind a whirlwind of clues and connections, a puzzle she was determined to solve. The city's fear had become a palpable entity, a silent shadow that followed her everywhere, whispering in her ear, urging her to find answers, to bring the killer to justice. The clockwork killer was a puzzle, a twisted riddle that challenged her every instinct, a game of cat and mouse that she was determined to win. Days turned into nights, the city's heartbeat echoing Sarah's own, a relentless thrum of fear and anticipation. The clockwork killer was a ghost, a specter that haunted the city's waking hours, an invisible hand that squeezed the life out of its victims, leaving behind a trail of despair and unanswered questions. But Sarah, her resolve unwavering, refused to be cowed by the shadows. The fear, the uncertainty, the weight of the city's fate fueled her determination, pushed her forward. A beacon of hope in the darkness, she was determined to unravel the killer's twisted game, to bring justice to the victims, to break the cycle of fear that had gripped the city in its icy grip. The clockwork killer was a puzzle, a twisted riddle, but Sarah was determined to crack the code, to find the key that would unlock the secrets of this macabre game. The clock was ticking, the city held its breath, and Sarah was the only one who could stop the clockwork killer from claiming his next victim. The search for answers began, a quest that would lead Sarah down a winding path, through the shadows of the city, into the darkest corners of the human soul, a path paved with the ghosts of the past and the whispers of the future. It was a journey that would test her courage, her resolve, and her very sanity. The Clockwork Killer, a silent puppet master, had set the stage for his gruesome spectacle. But Sarah was ready to take center stage, to confront the darkness and bring light to the truth. The city was gripped by a palpable fear. The news of the gruesome murders had spread like wildfire, consuming every corner of the city's bustling streets. Whispers of the Clockwork Killer echoed through the cafes, bars, and offices, replacing the usual murmur of daily life with a chilling undercurrent of dread. The police, despite their tireless efforts, were baffled. The killings seemed random, devoid of any apparent motive or connection. The victims, all young women, had no known ties beyond their shared status as residents of the city. The lack of leads and the chilling precision of the murders only fueled the growing panic. The killer, dubbed the Clockwork Killer for the methodical precision of his attacks, struck like a phantom, leaving behind a trail of fear and bewilderment. The city, once a vibrant tapestry of lives lived and dreams chased, now felt like a stage set for a macabre performance, with its inhabitants playing the roles of terrified spectators. The police, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of the task at hand, struggled to piece together the puzzle. They pored over crime scene photos, analyzed the forensic evidence, and questioned potential witnesses. The city's security apparatus went into overdrive, with patrols increased, checkpoints set up, and a heightened sense of alert permeating every public space. However, the fear remained, a constant hum in the city's collective consciousness. The streets, once vibrant with life, were now deserted after dusk. The city's vibrant nightlife, once a testament to its lively spirit, had withered under the weight of fear. The once packed restaurants and pubs were now eerily empty, the laughter and chatter replaced by the nervous silence of a city held captive by terror. Sarah, driven by her insatiable thirst for the truth, felt the city's fear coursing through her veins. She could sense the palpable tension in the air, the hushed whispers, the fear in people's eyes. The city had become a breeding ground for fear, and Sarah, in her pursuit of the killer, was determined to face the darkness and bring light to the truth. She knew that the city's fear was not just a consequence of the murders. It was a reflection of the city's soul, its vulnerability exposed. It was a reminder of the fragility of life, the thin line between normalcy and chaos. The city, once a symbol of hope and opportunity, now seemed to be on the brink of despair, held hostage by a killer who played a chilling game with the city's fate. The fear was palpable in the newsrooms, the city's nerve center for information and dissemination. Journalists worked feverishly, driven by a sense of urgency and the responsibility to inform the public. Every new development, every whisper of a clue, was eagerly devoured, analyzed, and relayed to the city. The city's fear was reflected in the media's frantic pace, the constant barrage of updates, and the desperate search for answers. Sarah, in the midst of this frenzy, found herself drawn to the case, a magnet to a force that demanded her attention. She felt a surge of purpose, a sense of responsibility to the city and its terrified residents. She knew that the killer, with his meticulous planning and chilling precision, was a dangerous adversary. The city was in fear, and Sarah knew that she was the one who had to face the darkness, to bring light to the truth, and to bring justice to the victims. As the city waited in fear, Sarah, armed with her journalistic tenacity and unwavering determination, began her investigation. The fear that gripped the city was not a force to be feared. It was a motivator, a reminder of the stakes. Sarah knew that she had to act quickly to unravel the mystery before the killer claimed his next victim. The city's fear was a challenge she was ready to face. Sarah, armed with her notepad and a relentless determination, set out to unravel the chilling mystery. The news of the murders, a string of gruesome spectacles with a clockwork precision, had sent a shiver of fear through the city. Sarah had a reputation for uncovering truth, even in the most intricate and baffling cases. Her keen intellect and relentless pursuit of facts made her a force to be reckoned with. This case, however, presented a unique challenge. The victims, all young women, seemed unconnected, their lives leading ordinary, unremarkable existences. Yet, they all shared a faint connection, a faded photograph of a lighthouse, found near each of their bodies. Sarah started with the first victim, a woman named Emily Carter. She'd been found in her apartment, a scene of brutal violence that left her neighbors reeling. The police had found no signs of forced entry, making it clear that the killer had known his victim. Emily's apartment was meticulously clean, a stark contrast to the chaos of the crime scene. The only item that stood out was the photograph, nestled near her lifeless hand. It was a picture of a lighthouse, its white tower rising proudly against a backdrop of a stormy sea. The image seemed out of place, a jarring anomaly in the otherwise ordinary surroundings. Next, Sarah delved into the life of Emily Carter. She learned that Emily was a quiet, reserved woman who worked as a freelance graphic designer. She had no known enemies, no past relationships that could have driven someone to kill her. The only peculiar detail in her past was a brief period she spent working as a waitress at a seaside restaurant, years ago. This revelation sparked a glimmer of hope in Sarah's investigation. Could there be a connection between Emily's past and the lighthouse in the photograph? Her next stop was the second victim, a woman named Jessica Evans. Jessica had been found murdered in her car, parked near the city's waterfront. The scene was similarly brutal, with no sign of forced entry. Once again, the only clue was the faded photograph of the lighthouse, tucked away in Jessica's glove compartment. As Sarah began to investigate Jessica's life, she found a similar pattern. Jessica, like Emily, had worked at a seaside restaurant, albeit a different one, in a different part of the city. The lighthouse, however, remained a constant. Sarah, now convinced that the lighthouse held the key to solving this puzzle, felt a knot of tension tightening in her stomach. She delved into the history of the city's lighthouses, hoping to find a connection between the victims and these structures. She discovered that the city had several lighthouses, each with its own history and stories. However, one lighthouse stood out. It was located in a small seaside town, a few hours away from the city. This lighthouse, known locally as the Whispering Lighthouse, was said to have a dark and troubled past. It was abandoned for years, its once gleaming tower now covered in moss and decay, a silent sentinel guarding the secrets of the sea. The whispers surrounding the Whispering Lighthouse intrigued Sarah. She had a gut feeling that this lighthouse was somehow connected to the murders. She decided to travel to the seaside town, hoping to unearth the secrets of the lighthouse and unravel the killer's twisted motives. The town, with its quaint cottages and charming seaside atmosphere, seemed oblivious to the horrors unfolding in the city. But Sarah could sense a dark undercurrent beneath the town's peaceful facade. Sarah's arrival in the seaside town brought her face to face with a local historian, Mr. William Harris. Mr. Harris was a man of few words, his eyes carrying the weight of years spent uncovering the town's forgotten history. He was the only person in town who could shed light on the Whispering Lighthouse and its tragic past. Sarah learned that the lighthouse had once been a bustling hub, a beacon of hope for sailors navigating the treacherous waters. It had also been the site of a tragic accident, a freak storm that had claimed the lives of several young people, including the lighthouse keeper's daughter. The tragedy had left the town reeling, its residents haunted by the memory of those who had perished. Mr. Harris, His voice, strained with emotion, described the accident. The storm had been fierce, the waves crashing against the lighthouse with relentless fury. The young people, gathered on the lighthouse deck to watch the storm, had been caught off guard when a rogue wave had swept them off the platform. The lighthouse keeper, a heartbroken man, had been unable to save his daughter and the other children. The accident had forever stained the lighthouse with the memory of those who had perished. Sarah's investigation had taken a chilling turn. She began to see a pattern, a connection between the victims and the whispering lighthouse. It seemed the murders were not random acts of violence, but carefully orchestrated events, a twisted form of vengeance carried out with a chilling precision. The victims, she realized, were all former employees of the seaside restaurants near the lighthouse, all of whom had worked there decades ago, during the time of the tragedy. They were the only common thread, their lives now intertwined in a web of death and vengeance. Sarah's mind raced, her heart pounding in her chest. The killer was not just a murderer, but a ghost from the past, seeking to exact revenge on those who, in his warped perception, had wronged him. His motive was not madness, but a chillingly calculated act of retribution. The clock was ticking, each passing hour bringing Sarah closer to the truth, but also to the killer's next target. She had to find the connection, the missing piece of the puzzle that would lead her to the killer, and stop him before he could claim another victim. The mystery of the whispering lighthouse, once a beacon of hope, had transformed into a chilling symbol of death and vengeance. Sarah knew she had to unravel the secrets of the past, confront the darkness that had haunted the lighthouse for decades, and stop the killer before he could claim his final victim.